Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Sunday. My name is Joseph Lutzer, and I'm coming to you live from Bangkok, Thailand. And as usual tonight, joining me back in, I think it's sunny, but I've heard it's not, Melbourne,
Damn
Australia,
cold. Freezing
is,
cold.
is my co-host, Carlton Life member and former president of the Carltonian Coterie Group, Vince Lochisano. Warm welcome to you tonight, Vince.
Well, thanks, Joe. I appreciate the warm welcome because I can do with as much warmth as possible out down here. It's certainly been very cold, middle of winter, and boy, very chilly today in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Although, not a lot of rain around, but certainly pretty chilly.
Well, I don't know. It's very hot here, but it looks like it's going to rain. It's our winter, so we get about an hour of rain, and then we just get humidity. But anyway,
yeah, it's your winter and about 39 degrees.
What is it? Let me tell you. No, it's not 30. Not 39 today. It's a bit cooler today. It's only 37.
37 must be a really freezing winter over there.
Yeah. Better go get the. Do you know something? I don't think I've sat in front of when I lived in Melbourne, I used to live in front of the heater. I don't think I've seen a heater anywhere, or a dryer for that matter. But anyway.
Well, could you believe it? In the middle of winter, when we used to not celebrate necessarily, hang on, I'll choose a better word. When we used to enjoy 6 games every Saturday afternoon in Melbourne, remember those days in the 70s?
I remember.
Yeah, well, over this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, guess how many games we had in Melbourne?
6, 2, 1.
No, we only had 1 game in Melbourne on Saturday and Sunday, which was the Collingwood Adelaide game today. There was none yesterday, none at all on the Saturday.
Really?
And only the one today at the MCG. So,
never mind.
Very skinny for football matches.
Never mind. So anyway. I guess other than that, you haven't had an exciting week.
Oh, no, I've had a lovely week. In fact, I spent a few days down in Torquay with my lovely partner who you know well, and my Essendon supporting girlfriend.
She'd be very upset after yesterday. Anyway.
Yeah, she wasn't interested in watching the footy last night, let me tell you.
I've had an interesting week. My best friend here in Bangkok, he's a Pakistani Brit, and his nephew was on that submersible. So he's actually very quite sad today. So I don't think Ali will be watching, but the family
was a tragedy.
The family tried to warn the father and his son not to go on it, and the son warned his father. And anyway, that's what happens when you got too much money, Vince. You got to find new ways to spend it.
Tragedy.
Anyway, it's a tragedy.
Regardless of how wealthy or not the people were on that thing, that's just a terrible way to go.
It is. Hey, so let's dispense with the formalities for the moment. Okay. So as everybody knows, this is coming to you on Facebook and YouTube. So what Vince, myself, and our special guest presenter who's sitting patiently back in the studio, Mr. Peter Brown, would like is if you could follow us, like, and share. It helps us. It helps grow the channel. And, we really appreciate if you could share and tell other Carlton people. So give us a like, give us a subscribe. Also, during the show, we encourage you to give comments. Please try to make them at least a bit legible. I know people now like to write in shorthand, but sometimes I'm sitting here scratching my head saying, and if I don't understand it, and listen, I might not be the most educated, but I do know how to read English. So please.
I'd like to think so, seeing you were teaching English over there in Bangkok up until recently.
So please try to make them a bit legible. If you want to say the F word, I don't mind. I really don't want you to unless you feel something really strong. But, we encourage everyone.
We reserve the F word for when we're on a rant.
Yes. Guilty, Your Honour. No contest.
Yes.
And just last but not least, this show is proudly sponsored by my touring company, Retired Working for You Tours. So there it is, www.rw4utours.com. In the picture, you'll see we do Bangkok, Chiang Mai and we do southern Thailand, but that's not to say we can do any other tours that you like. So
I noticed that you've got James Bond Island down there, Joe. Does that mean we get to go on the next James Bond movie down there, or?
I think that's an old one. Yeah, it's. Do you know the water there is so warm and it's so clear, and there's so many Chinese on the beach. But anyway. So Vince, you did say there were some games of football.
There were indeed. In fact, 6 of them this weekend, spread over 4 days. So
let us go through them.
We will go through them, and of course, it was the bye for Carlton, so we can go through all 6 games without.
So does that mean we won?
Without hesitation. Well, it means we didn't lose for a change. But the round started off on Thursday night down at the Cattery, as they call it, at Cardinia Park and Geelong. Goodness me. Who would have thought? But anyway, I suppose they're a damn hard team to beat at home, aren't they? And they're the reigning premiers, so they're trying to hang on to any hope of making the finals, and they did knock over the Demons, 11-12-78 to a wasteful Melbourne, 8 goals, 15-63, and they've got they've got a bit of a problem up forward. I think Melbourne they're very inaccurate. Even when they beat us about 3 weeks ago, they were very inaccurate. I think they kicked 8 goals, 18 or something like that for the night. So they've got to find some more avenues to goal and get a bit more accurate.
How many weeks for Gary Rowan for knocking out his teammate? I can't believe
hopefully the rest of the season. The rest of the season, Joe.
Anyway, Friday night, Vince?
Yes, Friday night. This was the Danny Frawley game. And unfortunately for Saints fans, they couldn't quite get over the line against a real quality outfit in the Brisbane Lions. Brisbane were 12-12-84, getting over a gallant St Kilda 8-8-56. And I think St Kilda are starting to show that maybe the early season form's starting to wane just a little bit, and some of these younger players are starting to feel the pinch. But it'll be interesting to see whether they can hold on to their spot in the 8.
And before we move on, Vince, just like to say to anyone out there who is experiencing any mental problems or traumas or anything, please get yourself some help. There's always someone, whether it's your best friend, I don't know. There's always these helplines, Beyond Blue and a few others. But we encourage people, don't keep them bottled within you. Just if people are your friend, they'll listen to you without ridiculing you. Anyway,
well, a lot of Danny Frawley's closest friends had no idea that he was going through the demons that he was at the time. That's for sure.
That's what I mean. Okay, let's get back to the football, Vince.
Yep. Well, this was yesterday afternoon at the Sydney Cricket Ground at twilight time. It might be twilight time for Adam Simpson. The way things are going down there at West Coast, this was an unbelievable result. Sydney Swans, who would have thought? They've been sadly out of form, but they, I guess if you ever want to return to form, play the West Coast Eagles. 31 goals, 19, 205. I mean, what can you say? 30 goals plus, 200 points plus, to a hapless West Coast Eagles, 5 goals, 434. And, wow, what a massive rebuild this is going to be for a once proud club.
I think the only good thing that we can take out of this is that the scrutiny will be on Adam Simpson instead of Michael Voss this week. That's about it.
Well, I don't think that's any consolation. But, look, I mean, can you think of a bigger fall from grace than the West Coast Eagles having won the premiership 5 years ago? And, I mean, even last year they only won 2 games and avoided bottom of the ladder purely on percentage from North Melbourne. So they've only won about 3 games in the last 36 games played. So, geez, it wouldn't be much fun being a West Coast Eagles supporter at the moment. But, look, they're a big club. They're a proud club, and you would think that they'll take all of the necessary steps, even though some of them might be really hard pills to swallow, to get that side back up and running and being competitive again. Because at the moment, you'd have to say they're just not even competitive.
No. Okay, the next game.
The next one. Now, some people were astute enough to tip this, but others weren't. Big result for Fremantle after being smashed by GWS the week before by something like 70 points. Fremantle came back this week and really turned it on at home, 14-9-93, knocking over Essendon, who have been in fantastic form up until last night. Only 9 goals, 761. So a 32-point win, and that puts Fremantle back into calculations for a spot in the 8.
Does. And I didn't watch any of this game. I listened to it. But,
goodness me.
Talk
about momentum shifts. Collingwood were 27 points up at half-time, and to be frank, when Adelaide had all the play in the first quarter and couldn't put it on the scoreboard, Collingwood came out and kicked the goal, and it was almost like, well, that was a wasted effort for 10 minutes from Adelaide, but they fell behind by 27 at half-time. Then they came out and played an absolutely scintillating third quarter.
Yeah.
7 goals to nothing in the third, and were 14 points up at three-quarter time, but they just couldn't hold on. And Collingwood, yet again, like all good teams do, they found a way, and they iced the game in that last few minutes, and Adelaide just couldn't find a way through. So you got to hand it to them, as much as I hate to hand it to them. 12 goals, 10-82 to Adelaide Crows, 11-14-80. If they had won that game, they would have been comfortably in the 8 with a game clear to the ninth team. But now they are purely there hanging on percentage from Geelong.
That's good. I didn't watch the game, but I heard in the last few minutes there were a few dubious calls in Collingwood's favour. But
wow,
anyway,
what else
I don't know. I didn't watch it
in front of a home.
I didn't watch it.
Feral crowd. There was about 63,000 umpires out there at the MCG today.
If there were 63,000 supporters there, how many parole officers were there?
Not sure.
And how many people had their real teeth? That's the question we need to ask.
All good dentists were handing out their pamphlets and business cards after the game.
Discount. Anyway, and the last game that just finished about 2 minutes ago.
Yes, indeed. This is a big result for Gold Coast after being smashed by us last week. They would have been put through the ringer by Stuart Dew during the week. I have no doubt about that. It was an insipid performance last week, so they've come out and smashed Hawthorn. How can you read Hawthorn's form? I'll be interested to hear what you and Brenny have got to say in preparation for next week's game, because we play them. 1 week they beat the Brisbane Lions at the MCG, comfortably, smashed them in the end. And this week they go out and lose by 67 points to the Gold Coast Suns. So I don't know. I can't read them. But anyway, Gold Coast 14-17, 101 to Hawthorn. Only 5 goals for 34. They kicked 3 goals in the first quarter, the first 3 goals of the game, I think. And then they only kicked 2 goals in the third, and that was it. They kicked no goals in the second or last quarters.
Obviously shows how much they rely on James Sicily. But anyway.
I think him being out of the side is a big, big loss. Yes, no doubt about that.
Okay, let's go to the ladder. So
finally, the ladder is back in balance again, because everyone has played 14 games now after the first 15 rounds. So everyone's had their bye, and now we can make proper comparisons. So clearly there's 2 teams at the very top, separated only on percentage. That's Collingwood and Port Adelaide on 12 wins from 14 games. The next team clearly in third position is Brisbane on 10 wins. Then we have Melbourne, a game clear again on 9 wins. And they're a game clear of 3 other teams, St Kilda, Essendon, and the Western Bulldogs. And, of course, St Kilda, Melbourne, so I should mention that Melbourne, St Kilda, and Essendon, all 3 of those teams lost their matches this weekend. But anyway, St Kilda, Essendon, and Western Bulldogs all on 8. And hanging on, as I said earlier, in the 8, could have also been on 8 wins if they had got over the line today. Adelaide Crows on 7 wins and 28 points, clear by less than 1% from Geelong, who are in 9th position, also on 28 points, 7 wins. Their percentage is 114.2, whereas Adelaide's 115.1. Also in contention now, also on 7 wins, Gold Coast on 100.7%, and Fremantle also on 7 wins at 97.3%. So there's a bit of a log jam there for 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Then a further game back. Sorry, I should say 2 points back, half a game back to Richmond, who are in 12th. They're on 6.5 wins. Sydney then and GWS on 6 wins each. I reckon, it's hard to see those two teams making the 8, to be frank. Everything would have to go right for them from now on. I just can't see it happening. Then we've got another half a game back to us, 5.5 wins out of 14. I don't know about you, Joe, but I think it's season done and dusted already, to be honest.
I think so too.
22 points. And then we've got a game and a half clear of Hawthorn on 4 wins, North Melbourne on 2, and West Coast on 1 win and less than 50% after that whopping loss to the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, anyway. All right. So listen, this week we're going, because we didn't play, we obviously can't do a review of the match. So what we thought we'd do is everyone does a rating of the players, right? We're going to be different. We've grouped all our players into their years of when their contract's up. And with the help of our special guest, who I will introduce in 1 minute, we are going to decide whether we keep them, delist them, or trade them. So I'd be interested to hear what people – feel free to make a comment. You don't have to give me a reason why. You can just put up the person's name and keep or delist. So
or trade. They're the
trade.
3 things, aren't they? So it's either trade, delist, or keep.
Yeah. And we've got to say if they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here at great expense to Vince and myself.
to the management.
We're going to start a GoFundMe page so that we can pay his exorbitant salary, right? Of probably, what is it, about $1.88.
Yes.
So 1979 premiership. I don't know if he wants to be known as a premiership forward, a premiership back, or is
how about just premiership? How about just premiership player?
Well, it's
he was named at full forward, and that's where he played most of his games.
And ended up in the back line. But here he is, Mr. Peter Brown. How are you, Pete?
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Vince. And good evening, viewers.
G'day, Brownie.
Were you a forward, a back, or a utility? They used to have that, remember, on the football cards, utility. They don't have that anymore.
Scanlon, card suggested a utility.
There you go, Vince. See?
So what we saw is a picture of Brownie in his ute with his arm out the window and driving down the road. Yeah, catching a football out of the window.
Blue wheel or something.
Yeah. Hey,
in his utility.
Pete, are you a golfer?
No.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to put this little joke up for Vince. I thought it might suit him.
There we go.
I don't know if you can read that. The house is on fire and he's out the door and he's going, thank goodness you're here. Take these. I'll search for the wife.
Yes, well, what can we say, Joe? Priorities. Get your priorities right.
I did want to say that. All right, so Peter, we've spoken to you. You know what we're going to do about the players. So what I've done, whether it be right or wrong, I've picked what I consider to be our not A-listers, but our better players. So I've called them the top 8 for want of a better term. I'm probably being a bit generous with some. And I'm going to put them up, and I've put the year that their contract expires. Now, you can, obviously, if they've still got a contract, we can't delist them. I suppose you can. But if they've still got a contract, we can just say trade them. We know we're going to keep them. Yep. So let's go through this. Here's our first lot. And this is by players' numerical order. So I'm not saying Adam Cerra is the best. It's just that he's number 5, and so I'm going like that. So
okay.
So obviously, we even if his contract was up this year, we all agreed that Adam Cerra we'd keep.
Absolutely. No argument.
Yep. Vince?
No question. Yep.
Okay, I'm the same. Patrick
In fact,
Cripps.
I think he's been our best player this year.
Yeah,
so do I.
Yeah.
What about Patrick Cripps?
Oh,
I'll keep him for one more year, strip him of the captaincy.
Okay, Vince?
Well, I've just simply got keep. I mean, I think Patrick Cripps has had lean seasons before, and then he's come back and blitzed. So I know one thing: he's a very proud man from a very proud family, and I think I'll back him to come back and play even better next year and the years after for the next, for the length of his contract at least.
Well, I would suggest that they give him at least 2 months off over Christmas because his body's not right.
Well, one thing I think we saw last week, if I could just say this, Joe, I know we don't want to take too much time, but he is our captain. One thing we saw last week is that finally someone at the club listened to what Brownie's been saying for weeks, and that is to play him in the forward line. And all of a sudden, he's kicked goals. And I think that he should be played forward a lot more often and given a lot more time in that half-forward line, taking marks and kicking goals from 45 and 50 metres out, and giving other players more time in the midfield.
Okay. People, Lone Wolf Ant is saying that we should where is it? Keep Cripps or something. Trade Cripps. Someone else is saying.
By the way, someone else is saying no captaincy. That's Peter. Can I just suggest if you're going to strip him of the captaincy, who are you going to give it to?
Let's not worry about that, Vince. Let's not worry about that because.
Oh, hang on. I'm just asking Brownie. Who are you going to give it to, Brownie?
So the Charlie or Walshy, one of the two.
Charlie or Walshy. Okay.
What about Harry McKay? Now he's just signed this huge deal.
No, he hasn't. He signed it 2 years ago. Yeah,
but it only takes into effect after this year.
Correct,
right?
But he signed it 2 years ago. What I'm trying to point out is our list management people decided 2 years ago when he was getting 90% of the forward thrusts into the forward line because Charlie wasn't around. He kicked 60-something goals and won the Coleman medal. They decided to give him a 7-year extension at the end of 2023, which was still 2 years further down the track. So
that's what I'm saying. So
unbelievable.
I don't know. I suppose we've got to keep him because then if we trade him, we have to pay part of his salary. So
well, I've got keep, but only because I don't think anyone else will take him off our hands anyway. What do you think,
a lot of people.
No, get rid of him. Trade him.
Well, there you go.
What if you got to pay for his part of his salary?
Absolutely, do a Brody Grundy on him. And the reason why I'm saying this, and I made comment before we got to air tonight, if you look at a lot of the other sides that are in the competition, they've only got really one tall forward, and the rest of them are either mid-size or small forwards. And that I was hoping that the two-tier attack with the Carlton football side was going to work. It's not. And as far as I'm concerned, I haven't changed my opinion on it. He's a one-trick pony. He's only got the left-hand side of his body, and he's too easily put out of a contest if he can't ever run and jump at it. And as a result, I'd trade him.
Fair enough.
Can I say he doesn't look hungry enough, does he? He sort of, I don't know if he looks lackadaisical. He goes up sometimes one hand and. He doesn't like to chase.
You wouldn't be hungry. You wouldn't be hungry either if you've got a 7-course banquet coming up over the next 7 years.
I don't know. I'd be pigging out anyway. Okay, so
these long-term contracts have got flies on them. We've got to stop giving these 7-year deals. Anyway,
the next group we've got Doherty, Walsh, and Curnow. For me, I would keep all three.
Trade
no argument.
Trade Doherty.
Trade Doherty. Who are you going to get?
Doherty.
Who are you going to get giving you Doherty? Wanting Doherty, sorry.
Well, Doherty's got 1 more year left on his contract, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, two more. 2024 and 2025. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I'd trade Doherty. I'd keep the next two, Walsh and Charlie. And as I said, I'd throw it up between the two of them as a captaincy.
Why would you trade Doherty, Peter? For our viewers, tell us.
I think we've just got enough of the same sort of calibre. He's getting up in age, and I think while he's got value, I would say trade Doherty and bring a couple of the kids through.
Well, he turns 30 in October.
That's what I'm saying. There's still value in him. Get rid of him. Trade him.
Okay. All right. Well, we're all here, and people are disagreeing, but that's okay.
Interesting. I can't see it happening.
I can't see it happening, but
you never know.
And the last two I have are Jacob Wiedering and Adam Saad.
Trade both of them.
Really?
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to have three players left.
Wiedering's had a woeful year, and he's not the general I want in the back line, to be honest with you. I just don't think he's up to it. And Saad, again, he's only got one side of his body, and I would rather put the time into Chicotta or Kemp or these guys in the back line, so that we can get some value out of that. And if anything, at a pinch, if you wanted to keep Saad, I would throw him up forward or in and around a forward thrust rather than be in a back line.
Yeah, we've discussed that before, haven't we?
Brownie, Jimmy R thinks someone's grumpy today. You're not grumpy today, are you?
No, I'm being honest.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sandra's saying that Wiedering is not a worker. Trex is saying, are you normal? Brandon, hi. Brandon, long time no see. Long time listener, first time caller. No, Brandon, he's saying Brownie wants a full rebuild. Petra, Brownie is spot on with Wiedering. Toxic role model for younger players. Someone here said you've lost the plot. Trade Wiedering, keep Saad. If we trade all the players Brownie wants, we'll finish last. Well, we're nearly last anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Look, it's subjective. I mean, I'm not here to be a shock jock. You asked me to go through the list and put down what I thought. Now, my comments in and around someone like Wiedering haven't changed all year. My comments around Harry Mackay haven't changed. And as a result of that, you can go back if you want to in the podcast for the last 13 weeks. I don't think I've been saying anything different. And it's the same. And I'll be the first to admit I've had Doherty in my votes through the year, but all I'm classing that on is purely and simply if he's got value, then take advantage of the value now rather than hang on too late, and then you're only faced with a choice of either keeping him and pay out his contract or delist him. So realistically, I'm looking to get some value rather than the other thing.
I agree with you, and I've got to say, Brownie, one thing you just pointed out, you have been most consistent all year on these points. So, you can't be accused of not being consistent in your views and chopping and changing from week to week. It's been the same sort of message pretty much every week. So there's no doubt about that.
Do you agree with this statement? Hang on, Pete. Do you agree with this statement? I agree with trading a big name, but the club won't have the balls to do it.
I agree wholeheartedly, Peter. Thanks for your comment. But the result is, guys, if you have a look at our top 8, and after you sent it to me, Joe, I've been having a bit of a think about that. That top 8 ain't going to win us a premiership. I'm telling you now. And the reason why they're not going to win us a premiership is basically because we've been hanging on to the same sort of people for too long, and I think we need to change things up a bit. And I've said this in the past where our top 10 players aren't going to win you a premiership. The next 14 and 15 players are going to be the ones that are going to win us a premiership with the work ethic and the hunger. And as a result of that, that's why, you put the top 8 players up, and that's why I've made my comments in and around the players.
Yeah. I think that there's some merit in moving Saad, and I think you alluded to this too, Brownie, just moving him away from defence and not being tied down there, and actually let him loose on the wing or through the middle and delivering the ball into the forward line. I think if you'd asked Adam Saad how he feels about his football at the moment, I reckon he'd be saying, I'm a bit frustrated down back. I reckon I'd be letting him loose through the middle or on the wing.
I would too. But look,
anyway,
hang on. Lou's agree. He says maybe put Saad in the midfield, but they won't. They won't. I mean, I don't understand. So look, they were the top 8 players. None of them.
No, I disagree with Saad in the middle. And the reason why I disagree with him in the middle is because he doesn't work hard enough with his body. His body is not attuned to actually working hard enough in that situation. It would have to be in and around the wing. Now, if Ollie Hollands doesn't come up over the pre-season, consider putting him on the wing. But I had him down as a trade. But anyway, as I said, it's subjective, and that's why we have viewers that disagree and agree.
No, that's fair enough. Fair
enough. Okay, hang on. Sandra saying Blues management or admin haven't got the balls. No, we all agree. And Lana's right. Carlton never make bold moves. We make safe moves.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Joe. If I could just say this. If they're not going to make the move like they would normally do after a season like this and sack the coach, which is what they've done ad nauseum over the last 20 years, if they're going to make the decision to stick with Voss, even though we've slid way down the ladder, then they really must make some hard calls on players.
Yeah.
Because if they're not going to let the players get away with yet again, seeing the end of another coach, then we've really got to start seeing some significant list management calls on these guys, don't we? Because if we keep the playing group the same and we keep the coaching guys the same, well, what's going to be different next year? Nothing.
No.
So if we're not going to change the coach, we might change some of the coaches around that coach, but if we're not going to change the senior coach, then we need to make some really hard calls on these players, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a comment here from Jimmy. Who are the top 8 players salary-wise? Well, funny you should say that, Jimmy, but all of those players that we just mentioned in the top 8 are probably not on. I would say that the top 8 would be Cripps, McKay, Curnow. We know Jack Martin and Zach Williams are up there, right? McGovern. Then I would say it might be Adam Shearer. And there's one more. Who?
Yeah, Adam Saab.
Think of it. Yeah. Okay.
And so it's quite. They're all 700 plus. I'm telling you, all of them.
Not hungry enough.
They're all on 700 plus, or the whole lot. Some of them are on 800 and 900, but they're all on 700 plus.
Yeah. Brandon wants.
I think that's a very wise comment. That comment there from Brandon was very wise. We need to get some premiership experience into this list. We need to recruit like Brisbane did when they recruited Luke Hodge a few years ago to get into the team and to start getting them to do habitual things that are good for the side.
If you recall,
change the culture down there.
If you recall, Vince, when Brisbane got Hodge, they needed a general for their back line. And
correct.
Their back line was a basket case at the time. So
and now look at it.
And Carlton would do no better than to go out and have a look to see who's available, particularly in that position where they could take some leadership in the back line.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so now I've grouped the rest of the players into the year that their contract expires, right? So obviously 2023 is the first one, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I think there's from memory there's 13 players, okay? And these are they're in numerical order, like the number that's on their back, okay?
Okay.
Trade.
Okay, so we've got Jack Silvani.
Trade.
What did you say, trade?
Trade.
Vince?
Well, assuming there's interest for him from other clubs, I would do the same. I think he needs a change of scenery.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. And can I tell you, David King says we should trade him. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one, Paddy Dow.
Paddy Dow, ditto.
Keep. No, I'd keep him.
I'd keep him too.
I'm sorry. I mean, look. Judging what's been happening this year with Paddy Dow, in fact, the last 2 years with Paddy Dow and Michael Voss, I just think it would be bordering on cruelty to put him through another year of that. I just think the kid needs a proper go from a club that's prepared to give him a go. And, he's only playing one quarter at a time. I just think he's been absolutely treated very harshly compared to other players that have been able to hold their spot in the side when they've been underperforming. And I just think the kid needs a change of scenery and a change of coach and a change of direction. So I think it'd be bordering on cruel to keep him.
My problem with that, though, Vince, is that, this kid was taken as a first-round pick and we've crucified him up until this point in time.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but 7 weeks ago, the kid was outstanding in the twos. I mean, he was racking them up, and he wasn't getting a crack at it. Now, I think over the summer break, I think someone's got to get into Voss's ear and say, "Hang on for a minute. I think you've got to change things up a bit." And this kid's probably well worth keeping hold
of. Yeah, I hear you, but I just don't know that Voss. I mean, surely after nearly 2 years of, at least a year and a half anyway. It just doesn't seem to want to give the kid a go. So all I'm saying is I'm judging everything based on round 14 or round 15, 2023. I just think Paddy Dow himself would do himself a favour and look for somewhere else.
All right.
Anyway, well, 2-1.
He doesn't have to agree. He doesn't have to agree to a contract either.
No.
If the contract comes to an end at the end of this year, he can say, "I don't care if Carlton offer me a contract. I want out."
I think Silvani will probably jump all over the top of him at St Kilda, I'd say.
I agree.
Anyway, Fogarty, keep.
Anyway, Fogarty, keep. Yep. I don't know what he's done. I'd trade him.
Look, I liked some of the signs last week, but it was only his first game this year, and I don't even know that he's played more than a handful of games in the last 18 months. I'm saying delist.
Right. I'm the same. McGovern, get rid of. I can't close the door quick enough. I couldn't close the door quick enough.
Trade or delist. If no one wants him, delist him. He's just taking up way too much salary cap space for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hang on.
What about McGovern to the glue factory? I think that's a
yeah.
That's a bit severe, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think that's a bit harsh, but no, just not good enough, not up to it, and hasn't shown enough for mine. De Conning, I'll keep him, and I was hoping to make the room in the salary cap for him.
I just hope that we don't.
What if he wants to leave?
Well, if he wants to leave, we make sure that we get a really high pick for him.
Yeah. Well, I think we used pick. Was it 29 or 30? I think it was something like that, 29 or 30 to pick up De Conning back in the 2017 draft. So. That was in the same draft as Paddy Dow and Lockie O'Brien. So he was towards the end of the second round.
Don't forget, if he does go, we've got to replace him with someone better, or at least of equal. Now, there ain't a lot of big blokes out there on the market, so that you can actually get. So I'd be more inclined to actually try and talk him into staying if he could. And keep him anyway in that situation.
If he wants to leave, you're probably going to have to let him go and get a decent trade for him. But what does that do to our ruck stocks? I mean, you've only got Pitnet left, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we're in a bit of bother. We're in a bit of bother.
Anyway, Brody Kemp.
Yeah, will be the next general in the back line. Keep him.
I agree. Keep. Yep.
Okay.
Starting to come good finally.
The supporters' favourite whipping boy.
No, delist him.
Delist him?
Delist him.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Lockie. Thanks for your service. All the best.
Kane Corn said we should have delisted him 3 years ago.
Yeah, delist him. And the next one along too, Marchbank, get rid of him.
He's too injury prone. I
rate Marchbank as a classy player, but you're right. There comes a point where you've just got to say, mate, we just can't keep carrying you. We just can't keep doing it. And, these guys end up clogging up your list and they don't provide you any service.
Absolutely.
Is he even playing in the reserves?
Well, he was, and then he was rested. I think he was sore after one game, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Unless he comes back and at least plays 5 or 6 games towards the end of this year, I can't see him getting another contract.
Newman, keep him. His early form was really good. He had some real tough opponents, and I thought he did a pretty good job. If he has fallen out of favour a little bit, I'm prepared to overlook that, but keep him.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I concur.
Cunningham. Yeah, he showed enough in that game he came back with. I know he's had a lot of football out, but I reckon he's going to be tough enough to, if he gets a decent pre-season under him, I think he's well worth keeping and giving him some more responsibility.
If he gets one more injury, if he gets one more injury this year, I'd just get rid of him. If he can't get another injury.
Is he literally on that sort of tender hooks?
Yes.
If he gets one more serious injury, not just a 1 or 2 week hammy or something. We're talking about if he gets a serious injury that keeps him out for another half a season or more, well, you'd have to start saying, David, 8 years on the list since 2015, and you've played less than 50 games in 8 years. That is unbelievable, really, when you think about it. It's averaging about not even 6 games a year.
Yeah.
Philp, I don't even know who he is.
Now, can I just declare my hand here? There's a couple of players on this that I've said keep, but I have no knowledge of them whatsoever. I've only just been going on the fact that they're probably running around in the twos, and I haven't seen very much of them. But I did have him down as a keep, only because obviously he's only a kid. Maybe I'm wrong in suggesting that, but so I will declare. And there's a couple of others on the list which I've said the same thing. So I'll declare that up front.
That's okay. Ed Curnow, I think we should sign him till 2030.
Hang on. I was going to say on Sam Philp, Joe. He was drafted in 2019. So he's meant to have been in his 4th season. And I think you'll find he's played less than a handful of games.
I can honestly say I've never seen him play. He could walk past me and I wouldn't know who the hell he was.
No, I agree. But I purely and simply, now that you've said that it's a 19 draft, you can assume that he's around the 21, 22, thereabouts. So correct. I would say to keep him.
Okay.
I think Ed Curnow, we should give a 7-year contract.
No, trade him, get rid of him.
No, I think it's time for the club to say to Ed, why don't you make the Carlton versus West Coast game at Marvel Stadium your swan song, and then retire. Yep, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Honey,
okay.
Delist.
Honey, nothing.
D-list.
Yeah, I've got the list on Honey and Durden and O'Keefe and O'Quay. The only one I've got there to keep is Chincotta in the middle.
I'd keep O'Keefe.
Well, I've got Trey Durden if we can get something for him. Chincotta, definitely not get rid of. Keep him. O'Keefe, I've said keep. And I'll pronounce this incorrectly, so I'll apologise. Is it?
Aquay.
Yeah. And the only reason why I said that I'd keep him is he wears number 41.
He must be. He's actually he's not on the list. He's on some sort of supplementary rookie list.
He's a bit of a project player. By the way, Brownie, I don't think you'll get anything for Sam Durden, mate. We picked him up in a mid-season draft, and I think you might be lucky to even get a packet of chips for him.
I'll take it. I don't care.
I'll take the packet of chips. What flavour?
I think it's D-list, I think is the word. But I agree. I think Chincotta's done well as a mature age recruit. He's 26 years of age, playing his first season of AFL, and I think he's done pretty well.
Yep.
Bit of a goer off that half-back line.
So these guys, I'm going to say, do we think that we can trade them? Well, obviously, I mean, if you delist them, I don't think you can delist them, to be honest. You'd have to pay them out.
You can't
Lockie O'Brien. Yeah, but Lockie O'Brien, I mean, no one will take him. That's the trouble.
I'd delist him.
I don't know.
But you can't, Brownie, because he's still got another contract for another year.
All right, then trade him.
All of these players on the list there that you see in front of you, all of them, unless you find a trade for them with another club, they will remain on your list in 2024.
Okay,
now, Lemmy and Binns haven't even had a go at senior level yet, so put them aside. The other 6 all have played. Now, I'm encouraged by what I see in Boyd. I think he's worth keeping.
Yep.
Carroll's another one that hasn't had a great deal of opportunity at senior level. He keeps getting injured. But I think we've seen more than enough of O'Brien, Corey Durden, Jack Martin and Matthew Owies to know whether we think that there's a future with them or not.
Well, interestingly enough, I actually put down on Jack Martin to keep him, and I put a really solid pre-season into him. Because
he looks unfit, doesn't he?
Yeah, clearly his body is not right, and there were glimpses of some magic. I thought in that first quarter a week ago, and I think he's well worth putting some more time into, providing that we can get a decent pre-season under him. Now, I've also got trade Owies if we can trade him. I agree with you with Boyd.
Think so too.
I agree with Boyd. Corey Durnan, no, not up to it. Binns, you said 2 weeks ago, Vince, that you thought that Binns might have got an opportunity.
I think there's a lot of people have been screaming for him to be given an opportunity. He's been getting 35 possessions around that sort of mark in the VFL and playing really well. I mean, he's not just 1 week; he's been playing consistently well in the VFL. I think he deserves to be given a go, but they keep putting guys like, Ed Curnow in front of him.
Yeah, well, I had keep Binns, I had keep Lemmy. Again, I declare my hand here. I don't know very much about it. These guys. Carroll, I know nothing about him, but I've also had keep him as well. So, yeah.
I think you'll find that Lemmy and Binns are still pretty lightly built. They're only just fresh recruits from this year. So they've got the second year of their 2-year contract coming up. They'll need to develop in the off-season in terms of their bodies. Lemmy's a good young prospect as a key position forward or a third tall, if you like, in the forward line potentially. He might be able to come in and... these kids are only 18, 19 years of age.
Oh, perfect.
So, I think you'll find that there's a future with Lemmy and Binns, but they've got to be given an opportunity at some point. O'Brien, I think you're right, Joe. I think, we all know what we've got with him. It'll be interesting to see whether you put all these guys up for trade, how many clubs would come knocking on your door. I don't think it'd be too many.
I'd be interested to see. I'm just finding a little bit out about Lemmy. Where is he?
Harry Lemmy is his name.
I know. Yep. Charlie Kerr. Harry Lemmy. It says he's a key forward.
Yeah.
Number 31, Tommy Elman.
Mm-hmm. He's Barassi.
Peter, he's 19 years old.
Yep.
He's 201 centimetres and he's 95 kgs.
Yeah.
Could he be a ruckman?
No, key position forward.
Yeah, Jackson Binns is only 18 years of age.
Yep.
He's 183 centimetres and he's 72 kilos. Geez, light.
Yep.
Yeah, well, a good pre-season, build him up, and I'd throw him in the middle.
It's interesting, Brownie. You're saying to try and trade both Durden and Owies. They're 2 out of your 3 small forwards. The only one we haven't got to yet is Motlop. So what you're saying is our small forwards aren't good enough. We need to trade them or get rid of them.
Not up to it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving right along, Joe.
And 2 left, Murkoff and Cottrell.
Oh, definitely keep Cottrell. He's got some shit about him, which I really like. And providing that he's managed correctly, I could see that he is going to fulfill a role, maybe as a small forward or even rotated through the middle, to be honest with you.
I think he's got the engine. He's got the tank to play midfield, Brownie. I think you'll find. And Cottrell, definitely. Absolutely. He can run all day. If you watch him, he can run all day, that guy.
Yeah, we need to bring in a more experienced small
He's just
forward.
The only area he's got to improve on, and it's pretty hard to coach this, I would imagine, is just some of his decision-making. It's not nothing to do with how he kicks or how he hand passes, just purely decision-making at times can let him down. But
is that a maturity thing?
Possibly, but look, he's been on the list also for quite a number of years. If you remember, both him and Michael Gibbons both got an opportunity back in fact, I'll tell you exactly when, in 2018.
Right.
Both Matthew Cottrell and also Matthew Owies, I should say, were both given an opportunity in the 2018 draft. Now, that's nearly 5 years ago. So, and Gibbons also, he ended up being delisted after a couple of seasons, but Cottrell continued to get opportunities and get his contract renewed. I think they saw something in him, just like you can.
Well, yeah. I like him. He actually reminded me when he first hit this year. He reminded me a bit of Robinson.
Mitch Robinson.
Yes.
Yeah. Got a little bit of that in it. Yeah.
And he's gone on to do some nice things up at Brisbane. Now, Murkoff is the guy that I know nothing about, guys. So,
he's the one that recently had to go in and have he had a problem with his heart. Yeah, he had a problem with his heart, and he had heart surgery. So we hope he recovers well from that. But look, he's a bit of a project player. He's very, very tall. He's like 7 foot tall. But just getting him to I guess get into the cut and thrust of AFL football at that level. He's been on the list now for a good 3 or 4 years, but he's never played a senior game. So
he's 23 years of age, 210 centimetres, 105 kilos.
I'd keep him for another year and then see whether he's going to develop from there.
But, he's going to be your backup ruckman if you lose to Connie. Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's hope that his health keeps up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. 2025 now. Someone asked, why are we discussing first-year players? Because we're discussing every player.
Yeah.
There's only 5 players whose contracts expire in 2025, and I hate to say it, but I've heard rumours that Fisher is definitely going to West Coast Eagles next year.
Yeah, well, I had him down as a D-list, either that or trade. So,
you can't delist him because he's got 2 more years on his contract after this year.
We'll trade him straight away. Get rid of him. Motlop, I've got a big question mark over the top of. Kennedy, Akers, and Hewitt, I'll keep. They've shown enough this year to suggest that they're got another opportunity. Motlop, I've got a massive question mark over the top of. I don't think he's quick enough. He's certainly not. He's not the clever type of player that I expected him to be, and I just think that I'd actually be putting him up for trade bait. To be honest, I think we'll see what we could get for him.
Wow! So that means if it was up to you, Brownie, you'd trade all 3 of our small forwards. So Corey Durden, Matthew Owies, and Jesse Motlop as well. So you just want to get a fresh batch of small forwards in.
Yeah, well, as I explained before, Vince, I've got a big question mark over the 2 big talls. I reckon we should only have one of them, and I reckon that we should be putting more of an effort into getting a mid-size forward, someone like a Myercheck or something like that. I know that's one out of the box, so he's a more medium-sized forward, and they've got the big Texan up there. But, I mean, most of the sides in the competition have got at least one monster in, guys like Wright for Essendon, and even the guy from North Melbourne. I can't think of his name now. It doesn't matter. But they're all what I'd call the talls for the forward line.
It's all about Larkey.
Malarkey, yeah.
Larkey at North Melbourne, yeah.
That's it. So, as I said before, this year hasn't shown me a great deal at all. I was actually a little bit disappointed with Motlop. I expected better from him, and I expected more out of him. Do
you think he's getting the right guidance down there? Because I saw a lot of good things in Motlop in his first year, which was last year. He did a lot of clever things around the goals, and he often had games where he kicked 2 or 3 that pretty much won the game for us. This year, I haven't seen any of that, and I haven't seen him hit the packs at full speed and rove off the packs. He doesn't rove off the big men. In the days of Eddie Betts and all that, we'd have Eddie Betts roving off Favola. I don't see Motlop roving off Harry Mackay or off Charlie Curnow. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't attack the contest at full speed.
I don't think Corey Durden does that either, and I don't think Owie does it. To be honest with you, I don't think they timed their run properly.
Yeah.
Although it's interesting, isn't it? One of the comments that I made to Alex Marcoux when we were doing the jumper punch, was the thing was that the Mosquito fleet used to be able to time their run off a pack. Now, what used to happen was that when there was a contest, particularly more so in the air, there were two rules. One rule was that if you couldn't take the mark, you were to bring it to ground. But you were to try and bring it to ground in front of you, not behind you or anything like that. Now, one of the things that Charlie prides himself in Brisbane is to try and get the ball to come over the back of the pack. Well, none of our guys have even remotely understand how that happens, let alone have it at the front of the pack. And that was our golden rule. If we couldn't mark it, was to bring it to ground and bring it to the front of the pack so that these guys had an opportunity to go through. And we just don't do it with our small forwards. And I can't see. Sorry, Joe.
No, go. You go.
I was just going to say, when I was having a discussion with Alex Marcoux about this, it's not something that you can go to school and learn. This is something that's actually inbred in you in your junior development as a player. If you're a smaller player on the ground, you're not going to fly for a mark. What you're going to do is you're going to get hungry and crumb. So and this is something now, in junior football, what tends to happen is that unless you're 6'6" or 6'4", can run even time and vertical leap, you're not going to get an opportunity at the level that we're talking about here. With these kids, the Durdens and the Motlops and the Owies, these guys, when they were knocking around in the juniors, they were probably key positional players, right?
Yeah.
They were probably key forwards maybe or something like that. And to get their mindset to change completely about what they've cut their teeth on and what they've actually got to do in this game here is just two different things. So that's the reason why I have my comments in and around where our small forwards are as a collective rather than as individuals.
Actually, can I just take you up on one thing? Matthew Owies, I don't think he actually plays like a small forward, as in the crumbing type small forward that we're talking about. He's one that almost presents himself as a short marking option. I mean, half of his goals, I reckon, are kicked after he's taken a mark and goes back on a set shot. I don't see him kicking that many goals on the move. Do you know what I mean?
That's okay, providing that you're not relying on the two forwards, two talls. If you need to change things up in the forward line, then this is something that you could take advantage of. If you want to keep going, that's fine. But again, I'm getting back to the point of maybe some value.
Yeah.
And trying to get some value in it. So as I said, Kennedy, Akers, and Hewitt definitely keep.
Okay.
Well, I think Motlop's got a couple of Motlop's got a couple of problems. One, I think he's got the second year blues, right? Someone else has mentioned it. I think he thinks that he's been in the system a year. He thinks he knows the game, right? Second, he just does not look fit enough to me, right? And three, he's always trying to take the spectacular mark.
Yeah.
You have a look at him. He's trying to take mark of the year. And he should the forward coaching should say to him, mate, you're not going to take mark of the year. Just forget about it. Just stay on the ground. But I don't.
But do you think they've made him accountable enough in his?
No,
I mean, we're talking about an 18 to
not.
19-year-old kid in his first or second year of football. I just haven't seen him demoted back to the VFL to try and regain form enough. I just think they've left him in that side to almost rot sometimes, when really he should have been dropped and given an opportunity to regain some form in the VFL. An 18 or 19-year-old should expect to do that because he's not going to know everything.
The other thing that I'm really disappointed about is that those three small forwards, their defensive work in the forward 50 is horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, sorry, keep going.
No, go on.
Brandon keeps asking, we only have one pick in the top 60. How do we cut all these players, top up with West Coast? Well, we're not saying you can cut them all, but I think what we're saying is maybe you can trade a few of them for either players
top
or
up,
picks.
top up your picks,
Brandon, you can always trade future picks. So we can trade second and third round picks for next year to this year. So there's a number of things. Let's face it. Most clubs on average cut about 8 players. The average,
you can cut. I think you're allowed to cut up to 12. Yeah, in terms of sheer D. I'm talking about sheer D listings. In fact, Carlton, when we went through quite a few years there where we were culling our list and we were rebuilding and all that, we had year upon year upon year. I've got a whole list of them here, where we had a dozen players a year that were delisted. Now, that is not including players that were moved on as part of a trade. I'm talking about purely cutting them from the list. And I think we're just about due to have that happen again.
Well, what these players don't understand is that your life expectancy of an average footballer is only 2.5 years. So whatever opportunities that these kids get at whatever level, they need to take that and grasp that with both hands, because they'll never get another chance at it. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yep, absolutely. I think a lot needs to be focused on in terms of our development, because I worry about kids that we recruit. They're raw, basically they're the raw material. They're 18, 19 years of age. They come to us and I just don't see them blossoming and developing and ready to, show their wares within 2 or 3 years of coming to us. I think a lot of players end up going stale and they develop bad habits. And eventually they get picked up when we delist them or when we trade them, and then they all of a sudden come good again.
We've been notorious of recent times by not having mentors for these kids that are coming through our system. Yeah. And as a result of that, guys like Wiedering and someone said, someone else, that sort of thing, they're not going to be the players that are going to mentor these kids. All they're worried about is bloody well saving their own skin. They're not going to be worried about what's going on. When I first came through, which was back in 75, believe it or not, they had a massive clean out in those years. And, they weren't frightened. There was, there was
put the broom through the joint. Yeah.
Well, there was George Harrison and Jack Rout and these guys. They didn't care whether there was kids coming through or not. You had to earn your stripes. And, they had a whole heap of players, guys like Hursty and Hawley and these guys that have been around for years that have been on the list, and we're never going to make the bloody the senior side. All those guys were swept aside, and they threw all of us kids into the twos, and half of us were still eligible for the threes. And you soon grew up pretty quick there. All right,
that's for sure.
Before I move on to the next group, a lot of people are talking about we need picks for the Camporeale twins, right? I don't know much about them. Are they next year, the year after? I mean, I don't want to wait 3 or 4 years. I mean, we need to be competitive next year. There's no point saying, we're going to wait for these twins. We need to be competitive because you won't have 80,000 members. Well, Sandra's saying they're next year. Well, there's 2 players. So there you go. So that's maybe what they're going to do. But let's face it, they're going to be 18 years old. Do you think they're going to just be walk-in superstars?
No.
Don't know. I don't know enough about them.
And don't forget too, guys, the one thing that is really interesting about the kids that are coming through the system, their body development isn't anywhere near where it's got to be for the rigors of the game. And
that's right.
I know the game was different and all of that, all the associated stuff where that's concerned. As a kid, I was a pretty big kid, but I didn't grow very much in the last probably 50 years. I think I grew an inch or something. But when I came to Carlton, I was already 6'1" or thereabouts, and I was only 16 years old. But the point I'm making is that my body definition was completely different to what it is in today's football. And as a result of that, the players were ready to hit the ground running. And put myself aside for a minute, but you got guys like Jimmy Buckley and Sheldon and Marku and these guys. Their body definition was completely different, and their ability to be able to take the responsibility and actually be accountable for what they needed to do was unbelievable. And I just don't know where that's all gone. I mean, football hasn't changed all that much, I don't think, unless there's a game out there called entitlement. But,
Well, that's at Carlton. All right, let's move on to the next group.
Yeah, Cowan and Young. Keep Cowan and Young.
Well, isn't it incredible that they've given Young a contract extension last year because he had a good year in his first year at the club, and they gave him a contract extension until 2026, and yet now in his second year, all of a sudden he's fallen out of favour and he's been dropped.
Yeah.
Now, again, does that tell you that they've jumped too soon again and given another player a four-year extension?
I think if Wiedering was out of the back line, you had Kemp and Young back there and Cowan maybe. I think you would find that these guys would step up to the plate.
And Cincotta.
And Cincotta, absolutely. Yeah. And even Boyd. He shows.
Well, at least we see youth. Look at those names: Hollands, Cowan, Young, Cincotta, Brody Kemp. They're all young players. I think that's what we've got to build our side on the back of from now on. These are the guys that have got to come through and start leading the way.
Well, interestingly enough, I've got a question mark over Hollands. To be honest with you, everyone got all excited about the fact that he runs 14 kilometres a game, but 14 kilometres in a game is not much good to you if you haven't got the bloody ball.
And if you're only getting 10 or 11 possessions, that's true.
Well. How important is the wing? The wing now is starting to become one of those positions on the ground that is really important in terms of being able to get forward and back to assist on both ends of the ground. So I've got a question mark.
But again, okay, that's fair enough to have a question mark. But again, you've got to say for a young 18-year-old with a very slight body, I think he's performed admirably in his first half a season. I think his body's ended up telling him he needed a rest. Before he got injured, even before he got that shoulder injury.
I think he needs to be built up over the pre-season, to be honest with you.
But again, I don't know whether he's been coached well in terms of where he needs to run, where he needs to position himself. He seems to be working hard, but not working smart. Do you know what I mean by that? He's running his 14 Ks, but maybe he can run 10 or 11 Ks instead of 14, but actually position himself in better spots.
If I was Hollands, I'd sit down and I'd study someone like say, Langdon from Melbourne, or or even Hunter from Melbourne, and get an idea of what the responsibility is when he's running the wing as he is. So now the next one is Williams, and I've got a massive question mark over this.
Oh, so do I. He's lazy, absolutely, and injured.
And I believe it or not, I've got a trade on him, and I've got a.
Are you going to have anyone actually wanting him off your hands? I can't see anyone else wanting him now. I think he'd have to be pushing 30 years of age, wouldn't he? He'd be at least 28, 29, wouldn't he, Joe?
Williams?
Yeah.
No.
Easily 28, 29.
Yeah. Zach Williams?
Yep, my word. Absolutely. You find out and tell me.
I will.
I'll be honest with you, Brownie. I have had massive question marks on Zach Williams even before he stepped foot inside Icon Park. Yeah. I never really liked the move of getting him over. And then when I found out that he was on pretty much around $850,000, $900,000 a year and he was given a 6-year contract, I thought, oh, my God, these list managers are on drugs.
He's 28.
Well, I'll rest my case. So he'll be 29. He'll be 29 in September. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. So by the time the year's over, because he's missing the whole year because of his knee injury, so he'll be 29 and a half before next season starts.
Yep.
Okay. So in March next year, he'll be 29 and a half. So that'll be his last year in his 20s. That's if he comes back fully fit.
Yeah, no. I actually had over the top of him either delist him or trade him, one of the two. So yeah, never going to be a player that you can actually rely on to get you through to the business end of the season.
Not only that, Brownie, he's never going to be a midfielder, which is what the club justified paying him that much money for. They said, "Oh, we're going to turn him into a midfielder." Now he just hasn't got the engine, he hasn't got the tank for it.
No,
but he never played midfield. Where was he? The GWS.
He played one good game in the midfield when GWS put him in there in a final, and all of a sudden Carlton's gone, "We'll go and get this guy and turn him into a midfielder." Well,
is he a sauce pickup?
One swallow doesn't make a spring.
That's right.
Exactly. I think this one might have been an early Nick Austin one.
Great.
Yeah.
Lou, no, we don't want to get rid of 25 players. We know it's not going to happen. We're just saying we're giving our views on what we think of them. So we understand that you cannot delist 25 players, but we're saying if we had the magic,
I think what he's trying to say is Joe. I think what he's trying to say is, I could be wrong. Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he's trying to say is a total of 25, as in you want to delist about 12 and probably trade another 12.
No. We're just saying, we're just giving our honest opinions if we could get rid of them. But, I mean, we know, let's face it, we know the club. I would say out of that list of that are going to be delisted or coming out of contract in 2023, I can honestly say that they'll probably delist one or two of them, right?
No, I think they'll do more than that. I think they'll do more than that.
Well, the only one I can see them getting rid of is
they have to, Joe.
No, they don't have. They don't have to do anything, Vince.
Well, what I was saying, but hang on. What I was saying earlier is that if they're not going to get rid of the coach, okay, then they have to make some massive decisions on players.
Yep. Okay, Vince. If you delist 4 players, how are you going to pick up 4 players? Where are you going to get them?
You get them through. Well, you'll get them through your draft picks, or
you've only got one draft pick.
No, but you'll trade. They'll trade. No, they'll trade some players and get some draft picks in exchange. They'll do it with.
Hang on, who are you going to trade?
Well,
out of the 23 list.
Well, we don't know what interest is going to come in from other clubs. But if you trade Silvani and you trade Dow and you trade De Koning and you trade guys like that, you're going to get some draft picks for them, aren't you?
Yeah, but I don't think you should be trading De Koning, right?
But that's your opinion. But all I'm saying is if you trade them, you're going to be trading them in exchange for draft picks.
Yeah. I think what you're not going to get 2 picks for one person.
I think what you've got to be smart about is that you've got to be aiming for even a mid-season draft and looking to see what's around in terms of ability in the even if it was in the lesser leagues and stuff like that in the surrounding districts. I mean, it's time we've got to change things up. We've got too many of the same sort of players right through our list, and we're too reliant on too few to get too much done. And as I said before, those players aren't going to win you a premiership. They're not even going to get you there. It's the ones that are hungry, the ones that are, that want to succeed, and the ones that don't want to be greedy or lazy. One of the two.
I'll guarantee you, Vince. I'll guarantee you, right? This is how stupid our club is, right? That just had it. Lachlan Fogarty will get a 1-year extension. Right? David Cunningham will get a 1-year extension. Mitch McGovern will get a 1-year extension. Nick Newman will get 1, maybe 2. Sam Durden will get 1 year. They don't make the hard decisions, right?
Well, therefore, we should expect to be in the bottom 4 next year as well, because if you're not going to change your coaching group and you're not going to change your playing list, well, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity, isn't it?
But that's what we've been doing for the last 4 years.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying to you, they have to do something to create change, whether it's creating change within the coaching group or creating change in the playing group. Something's got to change, because if nothing changes, we're going to get the same results.
I agree with you. No, you're not listening because you're saying, no, you've got to change. I know we've got to change. I'm telling you, they will not change because they don't have the balls to make these decisions. Because it's all about keep it safe for me. I got to be safe. I got to protect my little patch of dirt.
Well, we've seen what's happened this year with Michael Voss coaching in a way that even Brownie has described as too safe. And therefore, we've lost matches week after week after week after week after week by being so-called safe, inverted commas. The minute we started becoming bold and daring, like we did against Gold Coast, look what the results were.
I know, but we don't do that. That's the problem.
Well, this is the problem with being safe. It doesn't get you anywhere.
No, exactly. I agree 100%.
All right. Well, let's so I agree. I'd be trying to trade Williams, but I just don't think you're going to get anyone wanting him for anything at all.
Maybe a Gold Coast might pick him up, or
we
could always trade.
You'd have to pay. If you traded Zach Williams, I guarantee you that you won't get anyone paying him even half of his salary.
No, exactly.
So you're better off to just keep him. Next.
Anyway, Hannah says the host has no idea about what. You tell me, because I've seen some of your comments, Hannah, and okay. And the next one, the last one is Mark Pitnet.
Oh, we can't forget Mark Pitnet. He's just got a 4-year extension. Good on you, Pitto. Well, he's going to have to carry the ruck on his shoulders for the next 4 years by the looks of it.
By the way, that would have been a 2-year extension with an option of 1 and 1.
Exactly. That's what it should have been.
Yeah, definitely. And let me tell you, Mark Pitnet wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. It was the greedy bloody player managers that do all that sort of deal. And until someone takes a stand and actually takes them on, they're going to get away with this crap year on year.
Yeah. If you listen, someone says Pitnet, why 4 years? Well, apparently he was in demand. But the trade period hasn't started yet, so I don't know how he could be in demand.
I think it's more like we better secure this guy, because if De Koning happens to leave, which we think he is, we're going to be left without a ruckman at all. We'll be asking Matthew Cruiser to come back at at age 37 or whatever he is now.
Yeah,
he's actually the ruck coach, by the way.
Yes, he is. And my comments in and around Cruiser, Vince, from some time ago.
Well, he went from being a ruckman player to being a ruck coach without any prior experience or anything, just straight into the role. I just wonder about that, but anyway.
Yeah, I wonder about it as well.
Anyway. Gina says, why is he up on the list? Every player was up on the list, so we're just showing them when they expire. And that's it, gentlemen.
That's it. We've gone through all of them.
Yeah, we've gone through all of them. So we're going to have 12 players, according to us. But no, we're just giving some honest opinions. And anyway.
Wow.
Enzo Walsh, we discussed. He's up there. He was up the first. Enzo, I'd keep both Charlie and Harry, because if one of them gets seriously injured, then we are up shit creek. What else? Harry McKay will be the new ruck. I doubt that very much.
No, absolutely not. Not capable. Too easily moved. Someone like McInerney or someone like that would eat him alive.
Brandon asks, what's McGovern worth in a trade? I would say a Mars bar packet of chips and a can of Coke at best. Maybe even a hot dog.
Surprisingly enough, I would say that actually McGovern might have some value, and that's why I put him up for bait and to free some salary cap up. Not to.
Can I ask you a question, Brownie? If you couldn't get anyone interested in a trade for McGovern, are you going to delist him, or are you going to give him another year on a vastly reduced salary to say, well, you hold your position down in that back line as our intercept defender, and you can have another year, but it's on this much money, not what you used to be on? Because I think a lot of people would keep him on that basis.
I could be stupid here and say no, throw him on the scrap heap, but no, I would actually, as you suggested, if you could get him at a vastly reduced bloody income, then I would be happy to keep him, but make him hungry.
Now, the question I have for you as a past player is, how do you ensure that he's not going to lose enthusiasm or lose any appetite for playing at his premium level because of the drop in salary? I mean, is that something that as a player you're going to get all down about because, you used to be on 800 grand, now you're on 300? Incentive
based. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Right? You go out and you put in a poor performance, then you don't get your bonus. If you're on a certain salary and you perform on the day, you get a bonus. It's as simple as that.
Are they allowed to do that these days because of the salary cap? I mean,
no.
How do you control how much money goes to your players if you've got them all on these incentives? I mean, that could vary the total player payments wildly from one season to the next. You could end up breaching the salary cap, don't you?
You've got to be smart about it and make sure that their base salary is low enough to suggest that if there was any bonuses, then it's still within the cap that you've got.
Mm. Yeah, I just saw a comment there. I think it was Brandon again that I happen to agree with. I think we've got a gross imbalance between what we pay our top 8 or 9 players, and I'm not talking necessarily that they're the top 8 or 9 quality. I'm talking about the top 8 or 9 in payments. So all of those guys that are on 700 plus, what they get compared to some of these other guys that are busting their gut down at 200 and 300, I think that's where there's a gross imbalance in our list, and these list managers need to get their act together. Otherwise, they need to be moved on, and we need to give it in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing with it.
Absolutely.
Just to answer DC, I don't think it's just Michael Voss that makes the decision on who we trade. I think it's up to the list managers as well. So it's not
he'd have a say. He'd have a say.
He'd have a say.
But he probably wouldn't have the ultimate say in what happens with someone. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a very strong rumour that this is going to happen. That Jade Gresham is coming to Carlton. Do you think that might be a straight swap for Jack Silvani?
We must be offering him the world financially. That's the only way we get anyone else. That's the only way we give anyone else, isn't it?
Could be both Silvani and Dow.
Yeah, could be a nice trade there. Mm.
Well, maybe we could.
But there again, gentlemen, are we still falling into the same trap? Are we still looking at the midfield bloody band-aid rather than where we actually need the top up? So
well, I don't think Jade Gresham is setting the world on fire at the Saints either, is he?
Not really.
No, he's a pretty handy player.
He might be a handy player, but is he going to be a general in the back line? No. Is he going to will control the midfield? I can't see it. The personality is just not strong enough there.
What about?
Do you know one thing? Do you know one thing I've noticed too? By the way, Brownie, we struggle to recruit players from top teams. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
If I go through the last 7 years, we've had Blake Acres from Fremantle. He was the only player we got from another side last year, right?
Yep.
The year before that, Adam Chera from Fremantle, George Hewitt from Sydney, and Lewis Young from the Western Bulldogs. Then we got Oscar McDonald from Melbourne, Zach Williams from GWS, Adam Sard from Essendon, and Lockie Fogarty from Geelong. The year before that, 2019, we got Callum Moore from Richmond. Eddie Betts came back to us from Adelaide. Jack Nunes from St Kilda. Mark Pittonet from Hawthorn. Jack Martin from Gold Coast. Hugh Goddard the previous year from St Kilda. Alex Fasolo from Collingwood. Josh DeLuca from Fremantle. Will Setterfield from GWS. Mitch McGovern from Adelaide. I just don't see that we're getting players from top teams.
No.
Now, maybe it's because they are in top teams, but I just find that we're getting players from a lot of fringe clubs, and they're probably coming to us more because of the offer that we're putting on the table financially than any other reason.
Oh, look, there's no doubt about that. They've got the big bucks, and that's why they've come. And the problem is that we haven't got enough homegrown talent to bolster our ranks, and that falls squarely and simply on our list management, and also who's in charge of recruiting. Homework's not done. Due diligence isn't done.
I do wonder about these recruiters. Who actually, I wonder, puts the spotlight on these guys? Who assesses the list management team to see whether they're doing a good job or not?
The CEO.
No, isn't it the football manager?
Well, I would dare say
both.
A lot of these CEOs that we've
football
had.
Director.
Put Brian Cook aside for a moment. Our previous CEOs would barely have had a clue what their list managers are doing and whether they're doing a good job or not. And also what the recruiters are doing to actually be talent scouts out there. I don't know whether anyone's really keeping a close enough eye on whether these guys know what they're doing or not.
Well, would Diesel Williams be in the situation where he's being the football director as well as on the board? Do you think that he might have a role to play in this, where he could bloody well have some sort of involvement in who we recruit and who we don't?
Well, I dare say he should be doing that. Whether he is or not is another question. Yeah. I don't have the answer for you.
Peter, look at this comment. Do we need old premiership players back at the club for coaching and role model roles? We have no one except Diesel. He's only around when we're winning. I don't know about that, but anyway. Do you think that it works getting old players back to the club?
Well, I've said in the past that whilst it is a different generation and it's a different environment, et cetera, I still think that the understanding of what this club means to players that have passed is well worth investigating. Even if it was to the point where you could have some of these players address them and get them to understand where what their role is with the responsibility of the Carlton Football Club.
Yeah. And this is a pretty true comment. No one wants to come to Carlton. Toxic culture. Don't blame them. I read the Herald Sun here most days. I even see our mate Leo Sayers is still in the paper, even when he's in Europe. So can't get away from him. I like this one. Brad Lloyd, what a spud. He'd be the first guy I get rid of. Yeah, him and his brother, they can go together.
Well, you'd have to ask the question about the football department now after this year. What's changed since the review of 2 years ago? That's what I'd like to know. What has changed? What things have been put in place since that review, which was commissioned by the incoming president at the time?
That we never saw.
Luke Sayers, and
that we never saw.
What steps have been taken in order to improve our football department since then? And why did Brad Lloyd keep his job, and why is he still going to keep his job? If he's going to keep it, that is.
Well, the other question.
It's an interesting question. It's an interesting question.
Well, we've gone backwards, Brownie. I mean, you can't just let a season like this just go by the wayside and say, "Oh, well, we had a bad year. Let's just saddle up again for next year." No. I mean, Carlton supporters are entitled to think this is all rubbish.
Well, before Sayers went away, what he was doing is saying, "Oh, yes, we're going to have a massive review at the end of the season." Too late. The horse has bolted. And the result is, as I said a couple of weeks ago, if you could see that the football side of things was actually making some changes in terms of bringing personnel through, changing up the side, making some adjustments, getting some, and we still got our butts kicked, then the supporter group and the average Joe out there could say, "Oh, well, we tried that and it didn't work, but at least, who knows? If you don't try anything, you're not going to gain anything."
Membership's increased, Vince.
Yeah, that's what happens when you give away. That's what happens when you give them away on the back of a cornflakes packet.
All right, so we've been through the list. Now, there was no game last week, so there's obviously no votes to give, but here's our leaderboard. Adam Chera clearly out front. Sam Walsh second. Doherty third. Charlie Curnow, Akers, Cripps, Newman, Lewis Young, Hewitt, and Wheatering.
As you pointed out last week, there's a bit of a gap between Chera and the next three who are all very close, but then there's a massive gap from Curnow to Akers.
And that's quite sad, isn't it? Which is
they're the four standouts this year so far. They're the 4 standouts.
There is
since there was sorry,
go on. No, there is brownie points.
I'm getting to that. Don't worry about that. And obviously, because we didn't have a game, I'm still leading the tipping. We'll get to that in a minute.
You like putting that one up again?
I had to get that in. Sorry, Brownie. And as Peter said, it is now time for...
Beautiful kick from Brown. That's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
Yes, there is some brownie points this week.
You're looking higher off the ground every week, every time I see that black and white shot of you.
Yeah,
you're looking about 7 foot above the ground now.
The elevation is magnificent.
So, Peter, what have you based the brownie points on this week? Who best clubman?
Probably.
No, I think we were saying who do we think's leading the brownie points at this stage of the year, Brownie?
Who do we think that's leading it?
Yeah, who would you say are your top 3 contenders for your brownie points recipient of the year?
Well, we'll have to get him a trophy.
Yeah, we'll have to give him a brownie. We'll have to give him a chocolate brownie.
Hey, we've got magic brownies over here, so I'll send one over.
Are they the hashish cookies?
Marijuana has become legal in this country, so you can buy.
Don't worry, we're catching up in Australia. Another 3 states are about to make it legal over here too.
Yeah, but you can on the street you can buy marijuana. You can buy marijuana popcorn, biscuits, brownies, cakes.
But you can't bring marijuana in via your surfboard or your boogie board anymore, or...
Oh, you can, but you need to ask. What's her name?
I'll have to ask Chappelle Corby if she wants to bring it over.
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah.
Okay. Carlton supporter. Go, Pete.
Brownie points go to someone that's completely off the grid this week. There's someone that's put up with a hell of a lot and has nursed him back to full health. And I've got to give the brownie points to Tanya this week, purely and simply because of bringing Vince back from the horrible place he was. So my brownie points go this week to Tanya.
I'll tell you what, he knows how to keep me in sweet with my missus here.
Gee. Next thing you know, we'll be seeing Peter go to the football with an Essendon scarf.
Well, you know what? He's just about in line for that. But I'm going to try and keep him away. No, she'll be delighted that you've given her the recipient of the brownie points for the week. She has looked after me brilliantly over the last few weeks and months, especially since my big cancer operation. But anyway, yes.
Well, Tanya, you're the recipient.
Big shout out to Tanya.
Can
I also, while we're on this, I'd like to give a brownie points recipient of my own this week, Brownie.
Yes, go for it.
Seeing we're getting all personal with brownie points this week.
Yep.
My little niece, Ava Jordan is her name. She's only very tiny. She's a little pocket rocket, but she played her very first game for the Carlton VFLW team on the weekend.
Fantastic.
And they were victorious against Footscray down at the Port Melbourne ground, and she kicked the last goal of the game, which was a real little beauty of, in the forward pocket. She kicked a lovely goal and a great way to celebrate her first game for the team, and I think they're very keen to have her come back and play again. So she's been an absolute marvel of a player for her for the Victorian Metro side and for her local club as well. She's won numerous awards. So with any luck, Carlton AFLW team scouts might want to have a good look at Ava Jordan as she progresses. She'll be eligible for the draft, I think, next draft after this next season is complete. So with any luck,
good on her.
Keep us up to date.
She'll be possibly on our team.
Fantastic.
Okay, so let's go to next week. Sunday, the 2nd of July at the MCG, 1:10, I believe. Is that right?
It is indeed.
The times are always in Thai time. So I'll be having my breakfast while I watch this at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll have just come back from the gym. So it's the Hawks against the Blues.
Now, this will be an interesting game, this one. and I'm not sure whether the mere fact that we played at 110 against Gold Coast is an omen or not, but and whether and whether they don't think about it when they turn up at a football ground and they just get out and do the job. But I'm actually going to tip Carlton against Hawthorn. I think Hawthorn's inconsistency at this stage is something that's got a question mark over. I would suspect that they will come into the game with a little bit of confidence from the Gold Coast game, but the result is that they've got to come in with the right sort of attitude, or else Hawthorn are going to bloody well push them aside. Hawthorn are a side that will have a crack. Mitchell. You know what Mitchell was like when he was playing. He used to have a crack himself. So I don't suspect that Hawthorn will come in the frame of mind that Carlton's got it over them by any means. But I will tip them, and I'll tip them by about probably 10 to 12 points.
Lou's tipping us by 100, just to let you know.
I'm also going to tip Carlton. Only look, the main thing that gives me confidence here. I mean, Hawthorn played the MCG a lot better. They beat Brisbane there only a couple of weeks ago, so they're clearly capable. But that week they also had a guy called James Sicily, and he's out suspended. And I think that without him, they are dramatically weakened, especially in defence. So I'm actually going to tip Carlton to win relatively comfortably without being a huge win. But I'm going to say Carlton by 29 points.
Just before you come in, Joe, there is one thing that's going to be a question mark, and that is the integrity of the match committee and their selection.
I was going to go through that in a minute, Pete. I'm tipping Carlton, but with no confidence, because there's only been one team that has won after the bye, and that's because they played another team on the bye, from the bye.
And that's Collingwood playing Adelaide.
Yeah.
And they only beat them by 2 points.
I agree with Peter. We're going to have to show some signs of the second quarter last week to beat Hawthorn, because they're a pretty quick team. No? And as Peter says, Sam Mitchell was a rugged, didn't take any nonsense. So just on the selection integrity, what would you like to add to that, Pete?
I think they've just got to be smart about it. I think it's an opportunity now for them to change it up again further. I don't want to go into the game too bloody predictable. In fact, even if you started Charlie behind the ball rather than start him in the forward line, and perhaps leave Harry one out down there at this stage until such time as we see what happens. Clearly, their start of the two talls in the forward line is not working properly at this stage. I was hoping that they might have got it worked out, so I'd change some things up if I were them. I'd like to see Young come back into the side, and I'd like to see some of the. I'd like to see Wiedering up the ground a bit. I'd give him a run on the wing to find out whether he could actually hold that down, and then maybe throw Cottrell or Cincotta. Cincotta was already there, but maybe Cottrell back or move him forward.
I think you'll find Cottrell suspended until round 17.
Yeah, he's been suspended. So I was going to say that I think
so he'll be one force change.
I think Paddy Dow will come in for Cottrell.
Well, I hope you're right. And I hope they start him on the ground, because that's the only way we're going to find out. I mean, weeks ago we were saying we should give him 4 weeks, give him an opportunity to be out there on the ground. But, clearly using him as a sub is not working.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make many changes. I think they're only going to stick to
that win against Gold Coast. I don't think we had a bad player on the ground, so pretty hard to start dropping players. I think Cottrell being suspended gives them an opportunity to play one other player. That's it.
Well, Vince, you identified the ladder before. Our season's over, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah.
let's get that in our mind first. So wouldn't this be a wonderful opportunity to be able to change some things up and just see what we've got on our list? Because realistically, the way we're going and still using the same personnel in the same roles, et cetera, change things up a bit and find out what they're capable of doing.
Yep. Well, the players that have played pretty well in the VFL, which was not this week because we had a bye this week, just like the seniors did. Oh, what's happened?
Yeah.
We got a steam train going or something.
No.
So the players that played well the week before when we just failed to beat Werribee were Jackson Binns again, 32 possessions. Played a great game again. Zach Fisher had 24, George Hewitt 24, Jack Carroll 23, Motlop had 19 with 1 goal. Lewis Young had 17 in defence. And Lockie Cowan had 16 and Jack Silvani 15. So after that, it really drops away. Lockie O'Brien 14. You wouldn't be bringing him back on that.
No.
Josh Honey on 11. I think his days are pretty much numbered. Dominic Aquay 9. Hudson O'Keefe, the ruckman, 8 possessions, 25 hit-outs. And that's pretty much it. So I think maybe, I don't know, they might bring Hewitt in. They might bring Hewitt back in for Cottrell.
They may do, but then I would change it up even further. I'd bring Young back in. And
who are you going to leave out then? Who are you going to leave out then? If you bring those 2 in, you got to take 2 out.
Well, no one can be the sub.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the starting lineup.
Oh, starting lineup. Well, I know.
If you've got Cottrell going out, and assuming Paddy Dow goes out again because he was the sub, then you bring in, say, George Hewitt in place of Cottrell. Now, you're saying to bring in Binns and Lewis Young. Who are you going to take out of the side?
Well, I would take Owie out of the side, and I would take.
I know I'm putting you on the spot a bit there. But...
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's good.
Fogarty?
No.
Yeah, and he just got his first opportunity last week.
No. And I'd leave Cunningham in. No, you know who I would take out of the side? I'd take Sard out of it.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. That's an interesting choice. Okay. What about McGovern or Wiedering?
Yeah,
because you're bringing in Lewis. I'm thinking you bring in Lewis Young. Do you replace like for like? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. McGovern, and I'd bring in Binns and take out Sard.
Right. Okay. Interesting. All right. Time for experimentation. We're not going to make the final, so you might as well start experimenting with some of these boys and give them an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Do you know something I don't understand? Jack Martin is obviously not fit, right? Why don't they play him as the sub and bring him on?
Because I think what they're looking for with Jack Martin is the initial where he's having an impact is in the start of games. If you've noticed these 2 games that he's played recently, it's always been at the start that he's had most of his impact in the first half. He really drops away dramatically and ends up getting subbed out. Yeah. So he's only good for about half a game at the moment. I don't know if it's because his calf is still giving him problems or if he's just not fit or what it is. But I hear what you say about Jack Martin, Brownie. I know that he's talented and he does tease us. I've never seen a player tease so much as Jack Martin because he clearly has some skill and he's got a bit of magic about him. But boy, oh boy, we just don't get enough out of him and we just don't get value for what we're paying him either.
No, absolutely not.
Anyway.
Absolutely not.
Moving on, Joe.
Yeah, so that brings us to the end of our special comments with Peter. I'm just checking off the run sheet.
So we're all going to tip Carlton for next week against Hawthorn, are we?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing, Brownie. I'm tipping them by 29 points, but I'm assuming that they're going to bring the same sort of thing to the table on the same afternoon at the same time as they did against Gold Coast and do it against Hawthorn. The difference will be if Hawthorn brings pressure, because if there's one thing Carlton's proven itself to be susceptible to, it's pressure. We saw it against Essendon. The minute they turned up that pressure meter in the third quarter, we went to water, and within 10, 15 minutes, that game was done.
Yeah, well,
Gold Coast brought no pressure. If you looked at the pressure meter, the Gold Coast brought nothing last week against us. Not a thing in terms of pressure.
One of the things that I think Carlton will have an influence on is through the middle of the ground. I reckon. Yeah. I don't think Hawthorn are capable of being able to shut us down through the middle. So that's the one area I think we will have an influence on going.
Be interesting to see whether they play Cripps in the middle again or whether they put him up forward.
For mine, I would start him up forward.
They'll play him in the middle, but they should do something. Try and put people off the scent, like Craig McRae did today. He played the Dacos boys off the bench at the start of the game. And the guy tagging him was walking. The Adelaide bloke was walking around looking for him, going, "What's going on?"
He should have gone and sat on the Collingwood bench next to him, and said, "Let me know when you're going on, because I'll come on with you."
Interestingly enough, if they play Charlie up forward, I'd put Harry on the bench.
Yeah, they've got to do something to change it up. Anyway,
we'll see what happens. Peter,
thanks for joining us. Hopefully next Sunday we'll see you at the same time and we can talk about a magnificent victory. Someone said it's mathematically not impossible for us to make the finals. Probably, but
that's true. That's true mathematically, but realistically,
you got to rely on the teams above you.
I think there's too many other ifs and buts above us to make any defined call on that. And besides, if you get in just by the sheer skin of your teeth, then you shouldn't be there in the first place.
No point.
You don't deserve to be there.
No.
So put it this way, Joe. Even if we got over Hawthorn, we would have to get over Fremantle the following week in Perth.
Easy,
and then assuming we lose to Port Adelaide here, which I can't see us beating them at the way they're going, then we'd have to beat we'd have to beat West Coast the week after that. So we've got an opportunity. We've got an opportunity to potentially win 3 out of the next 4 games. Okay, so. That would, by the way, be 4 out of 5 because we beat Gold Coast last week. So if we can beat Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Fremantle, and West Coast, that's 4 wins in the next 5 games. Then we're right back up in the pack again. But then the challenge really comes in the last 5 weeks when we start playing sides that are in the top 8 and well entrenched in the top 8.
We all know, gentlemen, that now we're starting to get near the business end of the season, right? So it's who's going to have the healthy list, who's in form, right? Yep. Who's prepared to actually be able to step up when things get tough as to whether they're able to go on through September or not. Because it's only a month and a half away that we start to really consider where we're going to be when it comes to September or where sides are actually going to finish on the ladder. So, there's some big question marks. And we've already proven and it's already been seen that on any given day, anyone can beat anybody, probably with the exception of a couple of sides that are struggling badly. But things can change in a heartbeat. Anyway, on that note, guys, and to our listeners,
have a great week. Have a great week.
Good on you, Brownie. You're an absolute star, mate. Well done.
See you later.
Cheers.
Vince, I would like next week, Hannah's going to host the show because apparently I have no idea and she has all the ideas. So Hannah,
all right, Hannah, send us your email address and make sure you
your email address, and then I can put shit on you next week for probably 2 hours. My pleasure. Anyway, Vince, you know what it's time for, don't you?
Tell me, Joe, what's it time for?
What time is it?
It's
Now, when we're talking about no idea, Vince, no idea with your Roman bets.
Oh dear.
Who did you pick?
Well, we did go for this one because of its name, Navy Street. I thought, we just had a win over the Gold Coast, so I thought, oh well, let's paint the town blue, and we'll go for Navy Street.
I know. We're just unfortunately, going by
even though it was, I think it was the second favourite in that race. It wilted to come in 5th. I watched the replay of the race, and it actually got off to a pretty slow start. Almost galloped out of its gear on the first in the first couple of 100 metres, but settled in third position, but never made any ground, and eventually was overtaken by another couple. So I don't think he was ever realistically going to win that race.
Got smashed. If I'm reading this margin, it was 29 metres behind the winner.
Correct.
Jeez.
That's right.
Bloody hell.
Oh, well.
One was saying to me, Joe, do you know Hannah is a Geelong supporter and only watches all the Bagger channels because the Cats have none? And I don't care who she supports. I'm always glad to have her on. I can take it. I'm only joking with her too. Peter,
it's all a bit of fun.
But Peter wants me to go back to the reserves and get some Brownlow form back. Now, I've been training with the Blues, Peter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just. Yeah, I think I'm on the chopping block. I'm going to be traded. Do you think, Vince?
Tell you what, Joe, you better be careful. You better start pulling up your socks. No more mistakes. No more mistakes between now and the end of the season. All right, otherwise your head will be on the trading block.
I hope Hannah's not the list manager. She's gonna bloody delist me.
Yeah, well, we might.
Peter,
we might.
I'm sorry.
The
Anyway,
problem is, I don't think we can get a trade for you. Nobody wants you.
No, exactly. You know how I said what we'd get for McGovern? Well, you'd get a packet of stale chips for me and a half drink and a Coke. Anyway,
I think we get a bottle of Bintang.
That's barley.
Or is that Balinese? Oh, what's the Thai beer? Chang beer.
No, it's not Chang. It's Chung.
Is it? Oh,
say it properly.
Chung.
Yeah, the A in Thai language is pronounced the same as in the Italian alphabet. So anyway,
nice.
Yeah,
very good.
They have a lot of similarities. So Vince, this week you are taking us to. Do you know where you're going? You sent me the wrong information at the start.
We're going to Geelong. We're going to the lovely city of Geelong, which I actually drove back through on my way back from Torquay this week when Tanya and I went down there to Torquay for 4 days. Big shout out to Chris and Julie for hosting us for 4 days down there in Torquay. It's a beautiful spot, Torquay. Have you ever been down there, Joe?
Yes, many times.
Lovely spot. Anyway, went through Geelong on the way back and had a lovely lunch over at the wharf shed there on the water. So it was a lovely place. And Geelong's even got a harness racing track there in North Geelong. And we've decided to go for a horse called Young Bluey, number 7 in race 4 on Wednesday evening. I think it's at, is it at 7 o'clock?
7 p.m.
I think it's at 7 o'clock. There you go.
And it is 7 p.m.
Australian Eastern Standard Time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be 4 p.m. And remember,
we're talking about young players and we're talking about all these young kids on our list this week as part of our list management review. I thought we'd go for Young Bluey. That's what we need, a lot of young Blueys playing for Carlton.
And remember, go Cocoa Bananas, as Mick Malloy says. Bet big, win big. That's the motto.
Go hard. I'll tell you one thing is this horse will be trained and driven by a very smart, astute horseman called Matthew Craven. So make sure you're just put a couple of shillings each way on him.
Hey,
but we're going to put five. What are we putting on him? $5, $10? $10.
$10 and
okay, we're going to have $10 on him. Hopefully, he comes good for us. We haven't had a win for a little while, so
a little while. Have a look.
I'll tell you what, Joe. You don't need to keep putting up all those bets in the past to show how many of them haven't come off. Not even Mick Malloy has to go back over his mixed multis and show everyone how he's missed out.
Sorry, Vince, you are judged very harshly on this channel.
Isn't it funny how on the front bar they never go back over last week's multi to see whether it came off or not?
I think he's only got it twice. The multi.
Twice? I thought it was only once, but anyway, maybe it is twice.
Twice. He got it once in about his first or second year, and then he got it again last year.
Yeah, I think they're getting very silly now.
Yeah, apparently the one last year paid like $181 or something. So
there you go.
So
all right, well, that's what we're going to go for this week. So I know we have to wait till Wednesday evening, but it's only halfway through the week. So I think we've got a Thursday night game again next week, haven't we, Joe? I'm pretty sure there's a Thursday night game there next
I don't know.
week.
I live in Bangkok. What would I know? I don't know anything.
I'll tell you what. I'll look it up for you.
Thursday. So next week on Thursday night, we've got the Lions against Richmond.
That's
Friday
right.
night, Swans and Cats.
Yeah.
Then we've got 4 games on the Saturday, and 3 games on the Sunday with ours.
So we're back to having a full 9 games from next week right through to the end of the season. So it should all be back to normal next week, and we'll have a full complement of games to discuss.
Now, Vince, as you well know, before I get to the finale, we are proudly brought to you on the Jumper Punch channel. Okay.
Yep.
And I was going to say the Buncher Jump. The Jumper Punch channel has an interesting show on a Wednesday night called Legends of the Jumper Punch. Do you know who this week's legend is?
I certainly do, because I interviewed him along with Rocco last week, and it is an absolute stalwart of the Carlton Football Club.
Don't say
fantastic guy. No,
I'm
I know
that. I'm going to play the promo. So on Wednesday evening, let's watch who we've got.
Hi, Des English here, former Carlton player from the earlier start.
That's all right, start again.
Hi, Des English here, Carlton Premiership player from the early 80s. Hoping you all watch the Jumper Punch on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. Go Blues.
It's always funny watching the guys doing their best to give us a promo. Rocco loves putting in all the bloopers.
I was going to say, so Desi English, now remind me, didn't he have a bout of cancer?
He did indeed. In fact, it brought his football career to an end prematurely back at the end of 1986. His last game of football was the same game of football as Bruce Dools and Mark McClure's last games of football, which was the 1986 losing grand final to Hawthorn. And, unfortunately for Des, he didn't know it at the time, but that was his last game of football because he got diagnosed with leukemia, blood cancer, of course, I think early the following year, maybe around February. So, unfortunately for Des, it brought an end to his career prematurely. But, he was a great player for Carlton, a fantastic back pocket, played over 100 games, only kicked half a dozen goals, but I think he'll probably tell you that he remembers every single one of them.
and not to forget, he was from that rich vein of players we got from Bendigo in that era.
Absolutely.
Bendigo was good to us, wasn't it?
We should basically have a Carlton statue there or something with all of the great players that have played for Carlton over the years that have come from that Bendigo district. But Des was yet another one of those, and he was a great back pocket player. And anyone who doesn't know who we're talking about, especially some of our younger viewers, do yourself a favour
Number 27.
and watch these interviews because they really do. I guess give you a new perspective on the way the club used to be back in the 20th century. I know we haven't experienced much of it in the last 20, 25 years, but we were a very proud club who used to experience success on a regular basis. And Desi was part of the back-to-back premiership years of 81 and 82. So he's got a great story to tell, that's for sure.
Oh, good. We were winners back then. Anyway. All right, everyone. That's time.
Don't forget. What about our shows? What about the shows coming up this week?
Vince.
Oh, I thought you were about to wrap up the whole thing there, Joe. Sorry about that.
We wrote this, and I'm sure you don't read it. So, can you let me finish?
No, you said, well, that's the end of the show, and I thought, gee.
I said we're going to wrap up. Well, let me go.
All right, go on.
So, before I was rudely interrupted by Mr. Vince Interrupter Lochisano, right? So that's the end of the show. So we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. We hope you enjoyed listening to Peter Brown and his comments. So before we go, remember on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on the Blue Abroad channel, we have the actual Jumper Punch show with who's on it? Paul Sebastiani. Who's number 3 this week?
Well, we've actually got 3 and 4. I think you'll find that the 2 boys from that other show called the Almost Blues Brothers will be joining the boys on the show this week.
Okay,
that's Joe Adamo, and I think is it Adrian? I can't remember the other chap's name right at the moment. But anyway, yep.
So that's on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Not on this channel, but on the Blue Abroad channel.
Mm-hmm.
Then Wednesday evening on this channel, the Jumper Punch channel, at 7 p.m. we have Forever Rivals. That's with Rocco and the other 3 clowns, I'll call them, Manny, the Collingwood lunatic, and you got the Essendon guy and the Richmond guy. I can never remember their names.
Mark and Quinn.
Mark and Quinn. Quinn's the Essendon supporter, isn't he?
No, Mark is the Essendon supporter. Quinn is the Richmond supporter.
Okay, I get them all mixed up, as you can see. And then followed by the interview with Des English on the Jumper Punch, which is the legends of the Jumper Punch. And then next Sunday at the same bat time of 7:30, you've got Vince, myself, and special comments man, Mr. Peter Brown, and we'll be going through the Hawthorn Carlton game. So just to recap, Tuesday night, 7 p.m, Jumper Punch on Blue Abroad. Wednesday, 7 p.m, Forever Rivals on this channel, the Jumper Punch channel. Followed by, at 8 p.m, Legends of the Jumper Punch. There's English interview. And you've also got Blue Sunday next week. Joe's dyslexic. Yeah, I'm getting a bit tired of talking. So you're not wrong, Lana. Okay, so don't forget, follow us, like and subscribe. We want to grow the channel. Remember, you're the reason we do this. If not, I could always just ring Vince up and we could just talk rubbish. So it's a good night from me, and it's a good night from Vince in sunny Melbourne. And here we go. I can't find it.